Welcome back to Emotional Mojo. You know, the National Institutes of Health report that up to 90% of all trips to the doctor are for conditions related to emotional stress. So what's that connection between your mind and your well-being? Well, our next guest has the answer. Misa Hopkins is America's breakthrough healing coach, and you are the author of The Roots of All Healing. Welcome to our show.
It's so great to be here.
Let's talk about your inspiration for this book, because you discovered, you say, the emotional roots behind your own illness, which there is no known cure for. What is it and what happened?
Okay, with the illness, I had an undiagnosed condition for 7 years that no one seemed to be able to treat.
7 years,
And
wow.
as it turned out, I was producing as much testosterone as a teenage boy.
Whoa!
And I was a woman in my 20s.
That would change you as a woman.
That definitely changed me, that's
I mean,
right.
physically, you had changes happening.
I was changing, and my body was in tremendous stress because I was atrophying. My female organs were atrophying, and I was horribly depressed. I felt awful all of the time and didn't know why.
So if there's no cure medically, you had to find something within yourself, the roots of what's actually causing the issue,
That's
not just
exactly.
the symptoms itself. So what was it?
Well, I remember standing in front of my bathroom mirror. You can imagine this, with tears streaming down my face, thinking, this is the rest of my life. And that was my wake-up moment. I said, no, that is not acceptable. I'm going to heal no matter what. And that's when everything began changing in my life. Now, I did get medical help, thank goodness, and they were able to treat it. But the real breakthrough was in doing the emotional work. And I remembered a suppressed memory that I had been sexually abused as a child.
Wow.
And in that moment, I decided it was safer to be a man than it was to be a woman.
And so
my
your
body was
reacted.
creating that. Exactly.
And it's interesting you talk about you were treated medically, but the cure, treatment and cure, two totally different things. You essentially were able to find the cure for your own illness, though, really, by looking within.
Absolutely. When I was able to heal the emotional trauma at its root, then everything that was happening medically, that medical support actually took
And Jada,
hold
as a
for me.
counselor, can you kind of explain what's going on here when this happens?
Well, typically when trauma takes place, deep in our brain, there's a little small area called the amygdala. And what happens is it traps memories, it traps, suppressed, like she just said, suppressed memories or suppressed events that take place. And then somatically, we begin to feel it in our bodies. So that's kind of what happens with her. So it's very interesting. And my question actually is, you say that you found the emotional healing. I think, okay, you went to therapy, you were able to get in touch with the emotional intelligence portion of this. Was that all a factor as well?
Absolutely. I went to therapy, I did women's workshops, I saw alternative healers, I got regular massages. I was working at every level that I could to find my spiritual core that was much stronger than the abuse.
So what started happening to you? How did you start noticing that you were healing?
I felt better about myself. I could look in the mirror and say, I like this woman. She's pretty cool.
Now, yours is an extreme case, an extreme example, but for the everyday person, this still applies to them because we are still stressing and it's affecting our health. So what's your help for the everyday person?
And are there certain illnesses or conditions that are more directed towards emotional trauma, like fibromyalgia, or, you know, I'm just thinking of some of these that are a little bit more...
Obesity, autoimmune diseases, heart disease. Those are some of the major ones. Obesity, these
And people don't think of
us.
stress when they think of that. They think of
especially not emotional stress.
Even now they're saying that stress causes cancer. So if we can get in touch with why we are emotionally stressed. And I always say that if you can't manage your emotions, you're in for a really long haul in life.
Well, in your book, you talk about 3 different things we can do to de-stress for better health. Can you walk us through those 3?
Absolutely. The first thing that we can do is set more reasonable standards. Because we tend to be perfectionistic, and then we go to the other side of it. We say, oh, I can't meet those expectations, so I must be a failure, and we're on the roller coaster. So if we set more reasonable standards and we actually have some successes, we set up a whole new environment for ourselves. It says, oh, I can achieve and I can be successful in my life. So that's one thing we can do. The second is to do something creative and fun every single day. Have you noticed how difficult it is to be stressed out when you're having a good time? That's right. And then when you do have stress, it's related to something joyful because you're stretching your limits. you're expanding your boundaries. So it's a
love
different
that tip.
kind of stress, and it's helpful
Yep.
for you.
I definitely do not do enough of that.
Yeah.
I love that one.
And you
All
say
right.
to share feelings with a friend.
Absolutely, with a friend, a therapist, a counselor, because underneath the feelings are needs that want to be met. Things like I want to be heard, I want to be seen, I want to be understood, I want to be
Affirmed.
respected, affirmed.
Validated.
And so when someone that cares about you is listening, you've given yourself permission for those needs to start to be met.
And it
your
does feel
stress
nice
levels
to
go
just
down.
get it off your chest, right? Just tell somebody something.
That's right, your shoulders relax
Yeah.
and your whole demeanor changes.
And you talk a lot about healing by, you call it engaging the flow of divine consciousness. How do I do that? What does that mean?
Well, that's about getting quiet inside and changing the mind talk, because the mind is putting yourself down and putting yourself down, saying, I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough. So when you get still and get quiet, spend time in nature, spend time doing things you love, the mind chatter goes down. And now there's room to relax and see who you really are.
How are
Which is
people
a whole
responding
lot
to
more.
this theory, to your book? I mean, are you getting a good response from it? Have you heard some feedback?
Let me give you an example. There's a woman I spent many weeks with working to get to the core. And she discovered that at the root of her fibromyalgia and her chronic fatigue, you know about that one, was this fear to set boundaries with her husband.
Really?
That's right.
Wow.
So
So
the
then what?
illness was a way she didn't have to set boundaries. Well, I just don't feel good enough, or today's not a good day for me, you see?
Wow, that is
Yeah.
really interesting.
So it gave her a wonderful opportunity to create a whole new relationship with her husband that was healthy and
and you
happy
keep doing
and
this
better
nod like
Because I know exactly what she's talking about. Yeah, because the psychodynamic approach is making the unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
And that kind of is what she's doing. She's going deep underneath the
making it easy
roots.
for the everyday person.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Awesome. You guys,
Amazing.
Misa's book, The Root of All Healing, is available now, so we highly recommend you check that out. And Misa, I'd love you to stick around for this viewer problem we have that someone wrote in with. This one is from Evan. Evan says, my sister is probably the most negative person I know. No matter what it is, she has something negative to say. She sees everything in the worst light possible, thinking the worst will happen or seeing the worst in everyone, including herself. It's pushed everyone away from her because she's such a downer, but I want to help. What are your tips for helping her be more positive?
Oh,
Advice?
this is a tough one.
I'd start with listening.
Okay.
Okay, so
For
if you
Evan.
really want to help someone, for Evan, really listen to her with compassion, with your heart. Because when your heart gets involved, you know, as the one being listened to, that you've been heard. And your shoulders relax. We talked about that. Your demeanor softens. Now you're able to receive some input. Like,
Okay.
you know how cool
She's gotta
you
let her
really
guard
are.
down.
She's got to let her guard down so that she can actually hear some positive input and perhaps some suggestions for ways that he can support her in feeling better about herself.
What do you guys think? Jada, what would you say if Evan came to you?
Well, you know, I definitely agree, because listening is the hardest thing for us to do.
Yeah.
But to go ahead and to just take that extra step and embrace, there's always fear underneath why we are resistant to doing almost anything. But if you can get to the core of what the fear is, then maybe we can resolve some of those issues as well.
Best of luck to you, Evan, and thank you for the advice, Misa. We definitely appreciate
my
that.
pleasure.
You guys can go ahead and chime in on this one. Head to our Facebook page. We're Emotional Mojo, and you can share your advice and help Evan out.